If you haven't watched the video titled Rights and Freedoms, Three Witnesses in Law, a Solid Case, then don't watch this video first, go back and watch that one, then come back and watch this one. So after the establishment and the recognition of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, there were two subsequent covenants, or two subsequent documents that were drawn up and were signed by the nations, by the countries. And those two documents were titled the International Covenant of Economic, Social, Cultural Rights and the International Covenant of Civil Political Rights. Now, for short term, through this video, we're going to title the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, UDHR. We're going to title the Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, ESCR. And we're going to title the Civil Political Rights, CPR. Just so you know which one I'm referring to. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 26. Everyone has the right to education. Education shall be free. In the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 26, it states that education is a right, and that education shall be free. But they don't really qualify what they mean by it's a right and it shall be free. They just state that. Now, in the International Covenant of Social, Economic, and Cultural Rights, Article 13, it states that it's a right education of everyone. So it's a right for everyone to be educated. And they say that being educated, it strengthens the respect for human rights and freedoms. The law is saying that if you are educated and you have an understanding, that education will help you to respect more the rights and the freedoms of the human. For if you know who you are, then you can have compassion on others. The International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Development, Article 13. This states, parties to the present covenant recognize the right of everyone to education. They agree that the education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and the sense of its dignity, and shall strengthen the respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. They further agree that education shall enable all persons to participate effectively in a free society, promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations and all racial, ethnic, and religious groups, and further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. 2. The states parties to the present covenant recognize that, with a view to achieving the full realization of this right, primary education shall be compulsory and available free to all. Free. Secondary education in its different forms, including technical and vocational secondary education, shall be made generally available and accessible to all by every appropriate means, and in particular by the progressive introduction of free education. Free. C. Higher education shall be made equally accessible to all on the basis of capacity by every appropriate means, and in particular by the progressive introduction of free education. Free. So in Article 13, it continues to teach us that primary education shall be free, and secondary, vocational, and higher educational shall be generally available in the beginning, but then progressively it shall be free also. Those are one of our rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 6. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 16. Everyone shall have the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. In the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 6, and in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, Article 16, they both state that you have a right to be recognized as a legal person. You have a right, but you do not have to be obligated. So you see this operation in law working in both of these covenants. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 4. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 8. No one shall be held in slavery. No one shall be held in servitude. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 4, and the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, Article 8, they both state that no one shall be held in servitude. And we understand that it's the legal person that holds us in servitude, because it's through the legal person that they try and yoke us to their authority. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference, and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 19. Everyone shall have the right to hold opinions without interference. Everyone shall have the right to freedom of expression. This right shall include freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds, regardless of the frontiers, either orally, in writing, or in print, in the form of art, or through any other media of his choice. In the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 19, and again in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, Article 19, they both state that we have the freedom of opinion, and we can express it, and we can share it, and nobody, no government, nobody else is supposed to be able to interfere with that opinion. And if they do interfere with that opinion, as long as you're not harming anybody physically, then you have a right to recourse against them for their actions against you. So once again we see in both charters and both covenants, I prefer that word covenant, in both of them the freedom of opinion and to express it is in operation. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 12. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to protection of the law against such interference or attacks. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 17. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to unlawful attacks on his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of law against such interference or attacks. Again, in both covenants, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Civil Political Rights, Article 12 and 17 state that you have the right to privacy, you have the right to be free, and you have the right not to be interfered with. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Article 10. Everyone has the right on arrest or detention to be informed promptly of the reasons thereof, to retain and instruct counsel without delay, and to be informed of that right, and c. to have the validity of the detention determined by way of habeas corpus, and to be released if the detention is not lawful. That's the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 9, subsection 4. Anyone, now notice that ties in with everyone from the Canadian Charter, anyone who is deprived of his liberty by arrest or detention shall be entitled to the proceedings before a court, in order that the court may decide without delay on the lawfulness of his detention and order his release if the detention is not lawful. This is habeas corpus in example. Article 5. Anyone who has been the victim of an unlawful arrest or detention shall have an enforceable right to compensation. Arrest the man and see what happens. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. Article 10 for the Charter and Article 9.4 and 9.5 for the Covenant. Everyone has a right to invoke habeas corpus. Everyone. And by doing and invoking habeas corpus, you're questioning the validity of the detention, if it's lawful or not. And if it was not lawful, then you have the right to collect damage upon them. Now, habeas corpus is a way to challenge the jurisdiction. If they're trying to yoke you, a code against you, or an article against you that is only applicable to a legal person, then you can invoke your lawful excuse, go before a judge through habeas corpus, and have this detention dismissed because it's not lawful. And here's the operation of law again within the two codes, or two covenants. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Article 11. Any person charged with an offense has the right to be informed without reasonable delay of the specific offense, to be tried within a reasonable time, and then they list the rights that they have as a person, and not as an everyone or an anyone. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 14. All persons shall be equal before the courts and tribunals in determination of any criminal charges against him. So now they start talking about the rights and the freedoms of the person again, and not the anyone or the everyone. Now you'll see the different operation in law, because before it was anyone and everyone who could invoke an habeas corpus and challenge the detention. Now here, in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, Article 11 for the Charter, Article 14 for the Covenant, it says a person being charged, well, he has rights that he is granted, and you see those rights. A right to a lawyer, a right to be charged, and so forth. Different rights than what a human being has. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 25. Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services. The International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, Article 11. The state parties to the present covenant recognize the right of everyone, to an adequate standard of living for himself and his family, including adequate food, clothing, and housing, and to the continuous improvement of living conditions. The state parties will take appropriate steps to ensure the realization of this right, recognizing to this effect the essential importance of the international cooperation based on free consent. Free consent. And here I just want to draw your attention to one part of this verse. Article 2, the state parties to the present covenant, recognizing, so this is in the past, an action that happened in the past, recognizing the fundamental right of everyone to be free from hunger. And the last one we're going to go through right now, Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 25. And the International Covenant of Social, Economic, Cultural Rights, Article 11. These talk about the standard of living, that everyone is entitled to have an adequate standard of living. And it's going to describe to you, it's going to qualify to you what is an adequate standard of living. That is enough to have enough food, clothing, housing, medical care, and it goes deeper than that. But I'm only qualifying it on certain levels. And in the social, economic, cultural rights that we are granted, that flows out of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedom, it says that the object of all this is for the continuous improvement of our living conditions. My living condition and your living condition. And keep in mind, all this is a right that we are born with. All this is a right that's been granted to us. And it's expressing itself in law here, as you see. Now, up till now, I haven't brought these other laws into YouTube, but it's clearly expressed. Our rights are flowing through all these laws, through all these covenants that have been written. It just takes an understanding and a comprehension on how to go and apply ourselves in order to have these rights returned to us. This is one of the main reasons why I opened that website at eternallyaware.com, and I put that take-home page for the videos, the DVDs. This whole distinction business, it goes a lot deeper than just simple laws and regulations. However, we all need to get a firm foundation, a firm understanding, a firm grasp for each one of us on an individual level, and then we can continue on our journey. And that's the reason why I offered those videos at my website. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I showed you and shared with you something that I understood for myself, and now you can understand for yourself. That there's more than just one covenant out there. There's more than just one law out there that are pointing towards our natural and intrinsic rights.